Hey everybody, welcome to your CPD webinar. This one is quite guided, it's quite specific. What we're going to be looking at is integrating natural products into professional manual therapy practices. So let me give you a bit of an overview. I'm Rachael, Maxwell, knee bachelor. I have a degree in horticulture. I'm an equine chiropractor. I also undertake energetic and structural work, both with chiro and various different modalities that we all learn along the way. And I'm also a medical herbalist and a zoopharmacognosy practitioner, educator and teacher. So this specific webinar is more geared towards those manual therapies and those structural therapies and how we can bring in herbs not only to facilitate repair for our animals, but also how we can bring it in both pre and post therapy to facilitate, quicker healing and better outcomes, better therapeutic outcomes for our animals. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a run through of what we're covering today. So we're going to cover the integration of innate botanical selections or zoopharmacognosy or herbal choices, however you describe it, within that professional manual therapy to enhance the therapeutic outcome for our patients. I'm going to be looking at the role of specificity in botanical healing and its relevance to targeted systems. So we have very, very specific botanicals that can work on very, very specific issues and very specific systems as well. So we want to look at the use of botanicals for the release of smooth and skeletal muscles, but also how we facilitate that pre and post structural therapy as well. So we could turn up to a session and we can see that the animal is particularly stiff, there's a lot of muscle tension there, and we want to be able to facilitate a release of that muscle even before we put our hands on. It allows us to get deeper, it allows us to undertake a more detailed analysis with our hands. We're also going to be looking at herbal specificity within the central nervous system, and we're going to focus a little bit on the trigeminal, the vagus and the peripheral nervous system, because there are herbs which can help facilitate release and repair of that nervous system in each of those specific areas. So we'll go into those in a little bit more detail and why I've chosen those three as well. So it's really good to understand that animals know how to select their own remedies. It's also really important from a legal standpoint and from a therapeutic standpoint that in the UK we can only provide herbs using zoopharmacognosy. We're not allowed to prescribe, as manual therapists aren't, we're not allowed to prescribe, diagnose or treat. So we do this under the umbrella of zoopharmacognosy or innate botanical selections. What it does is it is possible to bring this into manual therapy by being really guided and really understanding the herbs that you're able to offer to your animals based on their specific needs. So we're also going to be having a look at some case studies. I'll demonstrate some of the animals that I've worked with, both post and pre-treatment, and then we're also going to be looking at how we can bring that in to the practical application that we provide for our animals, the actual structural therapy that we provide for our animals. So there are some key considerations. So innate botanical selection, zoopharmacognosy, it's all a branch, it all goes under that same umbrella of zoopharmacognosy. So whether we're calling it herbal choices for animals, innate botanical selections or zoopharmacognosy, we're talking about the same thing, and that is the ability of the animal to appropriately select herbs for themselves, those which they need within that given moment in time. It's all about physiology, it's about the limbic system, and it's also about your knowledge of the herbs, knowing what you can provide and what they do, essentially what their actions and uses are. So we use typically essential oils, hydrosols, there's also energetics involved, we use dried herbs and we use powdered herbs as well. They're the basic ones that we use. But we can incorporate it into manual therapy as well, but that also includes incorporating it into energetic healing, including things like Reiki. Because we're talking about a hands-off modality, we can use it in the energy field as well. So that does encompass some of the Reiki that we use and some of the energy techniques that some of the members might use as well. So it's very much a hands-off modality. We're not doing any of the touching at all. But you can combine it with hands-on modalities as well, and that's what I do as well. It's very detailed in its specificity within those herbs as well, making it really effective for a whole heap of dysfunctions and disorders across the board. If there's a dysfunction and a disorder, and we can work with it through structural therapy. We can also work with it through herbs. And likewise, if we can't work with it through manual or structural therapy, we can also address it through herbs and botanical offerings as well. So it's about understanding the practical application of this, and it is an entire modality in its own right. So we do need to understand the offering process, we need to understand animal behaviour, and we need to understand and have a knowledge of the botanicals. So I'm just going to bring a few of those in for you today. So what we think is actually happening is that we are activating receptors through our manual therapy modality, what we're doing. So whether that's energetic or structural, it doesn't really matter. What we're doing is we're activating receptors in the animal. Those receptors then trigger like a cascade of healing signals, encouraging the animal to engage and select the botanicals that we're working on structurally. So while we're initiating those receptors in the brain are telling the animal that actually these receptors have been initiated. So the herbs I need to seek out are going to be the ones that you're then going to be offering. And that's very specific. It's what we're detailing here today. So you can limit your offerings to include herbs within the sphere that we're going to talk about today. And today we're just talking about muscles and central nervous system. You could be activating receptors to do with many other systems in the body. It does depend on a case-by-case basis. So it's a modality in its own right, as I mentioned before. It takes the application of herbal medicine, which is, as you know, a modality in its own right, and it's effective for all kinds of different systems, all different dysfunctions, all different disorders. And we're making it very detailed, we're making it very guided, so it becomes a really holistic, a whole horse, whole dog approach to treatment or therapeutic indications for that particular animal. What we were hoping to do, the aim of doing this, is to enhance the healing outcomes and to enhance the therapeutic outcomes for each animal that we go to see. We all work bespokely with each animal that we go to see. So adding herbs and adding botanical healing into that is just guiding it. It's sort of funneling it through the branch of zoopharmacognosy so that we can increase healing and reduce healing times as well for each particular animal that we go to see. So some of the other considerations that you're looking for, what we're going to be doing is empowering not only you but also the owners as well, because after your session, after you've left, we hope to be able to provide some information for that owner where they're going to be able to offer herbs to their animals after you've left as well. So this really does decrease those recovery times and it increases therapeutic benefit for sure, 100%. So the animal will heal quicker, and you will find that some of those very stubborn conditions can disappear altogether because we have a continual system of healing going on. And herbs could take up to 48 hours, sometimes a bit longer to work. So that system of recovery is going to start to become more apparent to you actually after you've left the scene as well. As I mentioned, it is a complete healing system. It works very, very holistically to affect change both internally and on external structures as well, and it works with both acute and chronic conditions. So it works with all systems of therapy as well. So whether you're a chiro, whether you just do MFR, you're an osteo, perhaps you do cranial sacral or massage or Reiki or physio, any of those, it adds to your system of healing as well. So we're addressing structural problems through our manual therapy, but we are also affecting physical change, emotional change and energetic change as well. So we're working on all different levels with these herbs as well. And that's what makes it a truly holistic modality to work with. It's empowering for animals, it's empowering for us, and by using this system you really are giving animals the ability to choose. You're giving them a sense of choice which many of them have never had in their lives at all. So it becomes also a preventative modality too, as well as being supportive of animals that are perhaps on medication, or perhaps you're needing to support an animal long term over many years, for example. So we're looking at preventative as well as therapeutic benefits post-treatment sessions as well. So they're just some of the key considerations. I'm going to show you a case study of Nellie now. So Nellie was one of my, I don't know how many years ago, maybe 10 years ago, I met Nellie. Nellie was first introduced to me just as an off-the-track racehorse. She no longer wanted to ride, to to be ridden in races. And you always know that when you get an OTTB that doesn't want to run, there's something going on. You know that there's a structural issue going on. So straight away it was very obvious with Nellie that she had pelvic misalignment. Her right hind was always rotated, it was always dropped. There was always something going on with that right hind. She also had a left nerve impingement on her left fore, actually, that always came up with a sweat mark, so I was thinking perhaps she had Sweeney as well. She had really random myopathy, just here, there and everywhere. She would get a lot of muscle wastage in certain areas, and then you'd go and see her 3 months later and they'd got better and it would drop somewhere else. So there was like this shifting myopathy going on somewhere. She always had difficulty moving forward, always. You can see why she wasn't a racer. She just found it so difficult to move forward and maintain forward motion of her own. You could hold her together quite well, but on her own, her self-carriage just kind of fell apart as well. She did have a couple of ataxic episodes, a couple of tying up episodes. A lot of muscle definition and rigidity was seen frequently. And she was later diagnosed with PSSM as well. So she had undergone some trauma, potentially physical, almost certainly emotional. She's a very, very gentle horse. She just was not cut out for the racing industry at all. And also she had some major damage to her tongue as well. She nearly cut her tongue in half on a gate latch. And it got caught on her bridle actually, and it just nearly whipped her tongue off. Like 1 in a million accidents to happen. But her selections, whenever we went to go and see her, whenever I went to go and see her and did manual therapy with her, we always offered her herbs to do with antispasmodics, muscle relaxant herbs. Herbs like chamomile, cramp bark and peppermint were always selected. She also always selected very nerve-specific herbs like peppermint and St. John's wort. She had those both in a macerate. And she always took elimination herbs post my session. So after I'd done any chiropractic work or energetic work or hands-on stuff with her, she always then selected elimination herbs. And we know why. It's because we're shifting so much. When we're working structurally, we open up all of those channels that they need to eliminate stuff through the liver. So she always took herbs to facilitate that elimination, including dandelion, burdock, some devil's claw as well. And when she injured her tongue, she also took masses and masses of yarrow, which is a wound healing herb. So her selections began to get me thinking about structural work and selections at the same time. And since then, it's a modality I do side by side. If I do any work structurally, I then always go in and offer herbs, either post or potentially both actually times. Now this one is Blue. You'll see me working away here on Blue. Blue was quite old, he was arthritic, he did have a history of trauma. I'm actually here teaching my students about lymphatic rebalancing. So we did a specific hour-long session with this particular horse, Blue, on how they can rebalance the lymphatic system in this particular horse or in any horse they're going to see. So he'd had this full session for an hour. He'd had students working on his lymphatic system as well. And then all the herbs that he took afterwards were all guided towards lymphatic system. So they were all indicated for shifting the lymph system. They were all indicated for delivering that lymph to the liver for processing as well. So you'll see the first one he took here was calendula. It's a very well-known lymphatic herb. His other selections were cleavers, some devil's claw, some burdock, some red clover and viola. So we provided these very guided and very specific lymphatic herbs right after his session to enhance the therapeutic outcome. We added a couple of detoxicant ones in there, something for the liver, but he did not select those. He just went straight for the lymphatic herbs. It's no wonder why he's had student hands on him for an hour undertaking lymph work. There he is moving over to the red clover as well. So he had a little bit of red clover and a little bit of a chew. I think that one was the devil's claw. The one that he's on now is devil's claw. And then he moves over and he takes lots of cleavers. So cleavers are the sticky bud that you'll all know from when you were a kid. You used to stick it onto your brothers and sisters and your friends and run away. So cleavers is a very, very specific herb for the lymphatic system. It's a spring herb. It's coming up now. It's indicated now for all animals coming out of winter. But in this particular case, it was the only fresh herb I added. There were other lymphatic herbs that I could have added. I just chose not to. I think a selection of 5 or 6, 7 herbs is enough for them to make a decision on what it is that they need. And in this particular case, he decided to go ahead and take lots of the calendula and lots of the cleavers as well. So very guided, very specific for the lymphatic system, helping to enhance the therapeutic outcome of the structural work that was undertaken. After this session, the owners then went on and offered him these particular herbs for another 3 days. After the third day, he wasn't selecting any of them. He just needed them post-session to help facilitate the removal of all of that lymph that we've got moving as well. So another one, this is my own dog actually, this is Tiz. So just as an example, you'll see here that Tiz has got pins in her leg here. So she was in a road traffic accident. She basically smashed up her entire leg. She's actually got a plate in this bit here as well. So she was on box rest, cage rest for 16 weeks. What started out as an 8-week cage rest didn't heal very well. Because she's a spaniel, she's a Spanish spaniel, it then turned into 16 weeks. So it was a really long period of cage rest for her. But when we took her out and when we did some innate selection with her, we offered her herbs that were indicated for the various other systems that were wrong with her as well. So she'd broken her leg. She also has hormonal dysregulation. She could never express a season ever. We ended up getting her spayed at 2 years old because it was just stressing her too much. She also came down with immune-mediated polyarthritis or potentially meningitis. We think it was IMPA. Could have been meningitis. I'm erring on IMPA. So she had a massive, massive trigger for an immune response. So the herbs that she actually selected, unfortunately I didn't get a video, I'm really sorry, but the herbs that she selected was just comfrey. All she wanted was comfrey. So that's Symphytum officinalis, and it's indicated for broken bones. It's indicated for speeding up wound healing and speeding up repair. So we all go to see animals like this, not ones that have all been in road traffic accidents, but we've all been in ones where they need repair of some description. So whether we're working with the vets alongside them, I was lucky this was my own dog, so I was working really closely with the vets here. But her selections were all indicated, at this particular time anyway, for repair of this particular leg. Over the course of the years, she's now coming up for 10. Her selections include those which are associated with hormonal dysregulation as well, and she selects a lot of hops and a lot of hemp, both in essential oil format, to help and guide her and help with rebalancing of some of her hormonal systems as well as we go. So there are just 3 case studies. Some of them are related to the central nervous system. Nellie certainly was, but you will begin to find that once you start, I don't want to say narrowing down your selections, because that's not what we're doing. We're not narrowing it down. What we're doing is being very, very guided in the specific herbs that we are providing, and we're making sure that those offerings are in line with our structural therapies. So you can provide, whether it's essential oils or dried botanicals or topical sprays, we want to make sure that you have the information available so that you can provide those herbs based on not only your case study but the work that you're undertaking as well. So you might, for example, come across a case with a dog who's got bruising, and in that particular case, essential oils that are going to help with muscular release, so skeletal muscular release, we're talking very, very specifically about the skeletal muscles, include things like helichrysum, which is indicated for bruising, peppermint or mint, very, very well indicated for anything topical. It really helps to release fascia, and it really helps to soften the muscles down so that you can also then again go in there and get in there and do some of the really deep work. It takes a lot of the hard work away from us because we know how hard it is getting really deep into some of these animals. Other ones, 2 of my favourites are actually vetiveria or vetiver, zizinoides, and valerian. So that's the common valerian that you will have all heard about. You can smell it in the summer when it's coming up. Both of those 2 are indicated for deep muscle release of the skeletal muscles. So again, you might go there, you might have a sports horse who's perhaps knocked a pole, they've got a bit of bruising, perhaps they've bumped themselves on their stable going in and out. Whatever the reason is that you need to release a skeletal muscle, those essential oils are going to help you as well. There are lots of dried botanicals that help with specific skeletal muscle release. Some of those you're going to know. The first one, Matricaria, it's actually just common chamomile. That's what I'm talking about, just common chamomile. Once you can offer those to the animal, whether again that's a dried botanical or whether that's an essential oil, you're going to be initiating a release of that skeletal muscle. Other ones, again, as a dried botanical, you can offer valerian. Another one is Harpagithotum procumbens. Now this is actually devil's claw. It's a very, very mild muscle relaxant. It does this not by its antispasmodic action, but by reducing pain-killing signals. So once you've done that, you can then go in a little bit deeper because the pain element has been reduced. But other herbs that you can provide which are skeletal muscle antispasmodic, so they reduce that spasm. One is called crampbark, Viburnum opulus. It grows natively in the UK. You might be able to go and find some on a yard and just offer it to the animal. Passion flower, another really big sedating muscle relaxant. I find it is really well selected by most animals across the board, whether that's horses or dogs, they both tend to select it. And another one you're going to find in the pasture is yarrow, Achillea millefolium. I mentioned that when we were talking about Nellie, who'd cut her tongue. I mean, she'd cut her tongue right across and that deeply into it. And she selected lots of this particular herb because it's a wound healer. And it really did help to sew and cement her tongue back together again. I worked in conjunction with the vets at that particular moment in time because there was quite a lot of thought that she'd actually lose her tongue because there was probably about a centimetre left between it. So I worked really closely with the vets and was letting them know what I was offering to this particular horse, and I was just really lucky that the vets were like, do you know what? We're either going to lose this tongue or we're not, so we're going to bring in as much as we can to help facilitate the repair of this particular tongue. And she selected masses and masses of this particular wound healing herb to help facilitate repair of that tongue, and it's brilliant. And we managed to save it between us, the vets, and all the work that her owner was doing. We managed to save it, which was brilliant. I also indicate the use of topical applications for muscle release on animals. Mostly, I have to say, we use hydrosols, which is a very, very weak form of an essential oil. It's based in water. But this is really well selected by animals, and you can also do the selection process by using sprays and topical applications. It doesn't have to just be on what the animal is ingesting or smelling. You can use it. You can use the method by using topical applications as well. One we've all probably heard of is arnica. You can get that in a really nice watered spray. I've had lots of animals with muscle problems select it, and they often like it selected on a dandy brush and wiped over them. And again, it gives you the opportunity to go in there that little bit deeper. It softens all the muscles and allows some speeding up of repair to take place as well. Other ones that you might consider are comfrey, which is Symphytum officinalis, willow, which is Salix alba. So we know that willow has pain-killing properties. It's linked to aspirin and things like that as well. Another one is Filipendula or meadowsweet. Again, it's in the same vein as Salix as well. They both have lots of salicylic acid, which is a painkiller. And you can buy those as hydrosols, and you can use them topically on the animal if selected to do so to reduce muscle spasm. And one that I also mentioned was mentha or peppermint. Again, that is a really nice muscle relaxant as a hydrosol or as an essential oil, or even as a dried herb. It will have the same effect on those skeletal muscles to soften and reduce them and enhance therapeutic outcomes for your animal too. So there are more. There are always more herbs. So we want botanicals now for smooth muscle release. So reasons that you might want to have a botanical to release smooth muscle or internal muscles is to relieve ingestion. Like, how many horses do we know that we've turned up to a yard and we're looking at them and we're kind of going, I think you need to go and take them for a walk now. I think they might have a bit of tension in the tummy. Lots of dogs, you'll see lots of dogs that are just a little bit bloated, or lots of horses that are just a little bit tucked up. And they're just too tight. You can see it's one of the big areas, when we work structurally on an animal, it's one of the big areas that you can see where there is internal tension taking place because the gut is always tucked up or it's really tight. But also these kind of muscle relaxants, smooth muscle relaxants, will work on the respiratory system. So any animal that has got COPD or a viral infection of the lungs, or anything that's stopping them from breathing a little bit, heaves perhaps they've got, we're really going to help to facilitate not only the release of the muscle but then opening up of the airways. We are literally giving them the opportunity to breathe deeper and for longer. So what does that do? When we can breathe deeper and for longer, we're increasing oxygenation, we're increasing blood flow around the body, and so we're increasing nutrition to all the different systems in the body. So when we do that, we know that health, we're bringing in health. That's exactly what we're doing. We're bringing in air, we're bringing in the ability of that blood to flow around the body, taking vital nutrition and oxygen wherever it needs to go. So some of these are going to be really good for the respiratory system. But you can also get botanicals which are going to help the smooth muscles of the kidneys or the smooth muscles of the gastrointestinal tract. Again, lots of different reasons for those. And I'll go through each of them in turn. So for the gastrointestinal tract, we're really looking at things like ulcers, colitis, IBD. Anything where there is tension in the gut and we want to release it. We want the animal to just have a little bit of a break from whatever dysfunction is going on internally. Here are some that you're going to know. Fennel is the top one. The posh Latin name for it is Feniculum vulgar, but it just means fennel. You can use that as an essential oil or a dried herb. You can offer it as a hydrosol even. Another one you're probably going to know is Melissa. It's also called bee balm, or most of you will know it as lemon balm. It's a really wonderful GIT relaxant. It just relaxes the smooth muscle and just allows the animal a bit of a break. Other ones which I mentioned, Viburnum opulus, which is also called cramp bark, and also any kind of mallow species. They grow in the paddocks within the UK, but the medicinal one that you want to, if you're going to buy it in, is called Althea officinalis. What this does is it has a really deep mucilaginous quality that affects like the entire gastrointestinal tract. And it provides a barrier between the gut and whatever's going in the gut, so food basically. And that gives the gut a rest because it slows down gastric secretions as well. So it has a healing quality to it as well. So it kind of lines the gastrointestinal tract and provides this physical barrier. And it also has wound healing qualities within it. So whatever is going on within the gastrointestinal tract, you might find that both dogs and horses will select that. And another one, that matricaria, again, is just a simple name for chamomile. So chamomile is very, very well selected by horses and dogs. I do find that dogs actually select the tea, so a cold infusion of the tea more than they would the dried herb. Horses, because they're not carnivorous, they're going to eat the forage quite happily, and they'll happily just eat dried chamomile or even fresh chamomile direct from your hand. Now here's some very, very specific ones for the kidneys, because there are some occasions when you need to release tension within the kidneys. Mostly this is associated with UTIs. However, you will also find them really beneficial for things like gelding scars and for lumbar tension. So this is an old horse of mine, I didn't own this particular horse, it's one of my early cases. I cannot remember the name of this particular horse, I'm really sorry. But you can see a really nice functional scoliosis going on there. When I put my hands on this particular horse, there was a really, really hard lumbar tension. I knew immediately that it was related to what was going on with the kidneys, so you can kind of feel it underneath that there was probably some kidney tension. It's very unusual to get horses with UTIs. Now, this one didn't have a UTI, but it was coming into spring. And I don't know whether anybody else who's a structural therapist has found this, but I have always found that transition from winter to spring causes lots of gastric juices to flow. It also causes a lot of lumbar tension. Now, there are several reasons for this. It could be, some of them are related to the changes in diet, some are related to work, some of them are related to the fact that the diaphragm is just constricted after winter. And nearly in every animal I do, as soon as I come out of winter and go into spring, I always release the diaphragm, and it's just one of those muscles that just tends to release once you put hands on. But because of its attachment here at the back of the lumbar, you also get an effect, like a cascade effect, of the lumbar tension releasing as well. So, but also it could be related to lots of structural issues as well. But for me, whenever I came out of winter into spring, I would always notice lumbar tension, and it was nearly always related to the respiratory system, somewhere along the line. But herbs that can help with soft muscle release, specifically of the kidneys, so that we're helping that lumbar tension as well, is things like dandelion, Trigeminal officinalis, only the leaf, not the root. because it supports fluid movement and fluid movement from the joints as well, and fluid movement through the kidneys. So once you start activating those receptors within the kidneys, they just kind of release and let go a little bit, and that's exactly what dandelion does. It doesn't have a toning effect, which you'll often find kidney herbs indicated for. Most of the time kidney herbs are like, oh, they've got a UTI, they need toning. But these herbs are not for that. These are specifically for releasing that tension, because I think it's slightly different, particularly with horses, because they don't suffer from many UTIs. Most of their issues related to the kidneys and related to tension within the kidneys are a structural problem, or, as I said, as that transition from winter through to spring. Other ones that you can consider are goldenrod and, of course, parsley leaf. If you've got parsley leaf growing, you can go and offer it. You can go and offer it along with some dandelion leaf, and it will really help to release tension within the kidneys. You will increase diuresis, so you will increase the water output, but that could be a good thing. You're getting rid of a lot of metabolic waste and inflammation and stuff that's building up in the body. So release it, let it all go, and increase diuresis in the process as well. Now, I had a brief foray there into the respiratory system, because we do really want to release a lot of those tight muscles within the respiratory system. If you work with ex-racers, if you work with any sports horses, even if you work with, you know, some happy hackers that have respiratory conditions, a lot of metabolic horses have respiratory conditions. I guess it's a depletion in the immune system, and it just they're open to infection. I'm not sure, but I do find that a lot of metabolic ones also tend to suffer from a lot of winter or post-winter infections as well. Anything that's got COPD, again, complete other end of the spectrum. We're not talking about winter, we're talking about summer. Some things that have got hay fever or any kind of viral infection. Herbs are going to be really helpful, and we want to release the smooth muscle. So this has got nothing to do with antimicrobial herbs. This is just about releasing some of the tension that's within that respiratory system. I do have to say that a lot of them also have an antimicrobial action as well, so they would work really well if you've got infection. So Verbascum thapsus, sorry, all these Latin names, is just mullein. Mullein is a native. It grows wild throughout the UK. It grows wild throughout much of the northern hemisphere as well. Glycyrrhiza glabra, licorice root. We've all heard of licorice. We've all eaten the sweets when we were kids. This is exactly what we want for our animals. It's a really soft, gentle muscle relaxant on the respiratory system. Another one that you may or may not have heard is inula. You used to get it in cough sweets. You still do get it in cough sweets. But inula helenium or elecampane root is another one that will release tension within the respiratory system, and it will open up the airways, and it will just allow the breath to expand and become much more nourished. And another one we all know is thyme. So if you've got thyme in your kitchen cupboards and you've got a horse with a respiratory dysfunction, you can offer it thyme. Thyme is also massively antimicrobial as well. It is well selected, but not so much the dried herb. I do find that a herbal infusion, like a tea or a cold tea, is much more selected than the dried herb. But I have had animals with active infections select it as well, so you need to bear that in mind as well. Another one which I haven't added here is also mallow root or mallow leaf. Sorry, it's a really nice long one. I should have added it on there. Mentioned it earlier too. So we're going to take a little journey now. So we've turned up at this yard, or we've turned up at somebody's house, and we've got this animal in front of us, and they've had a lot of muscle tension, and we've offered them some botanicals, and all of a sudden we're looking at it and we're going, wow, you know, I can get into this animal. I've saved myself 20 minutes of time because I've allowed these muscles to release of their own accord. Now I can get here and I can start assessing the central nervous system, and boy, what do we find? We find that this animal has got a trigeminal nerve problem, it's got a TMJ problem, or it's a head shaker, or it's a trauma horse and it's had bridling that's been on too tight all its life, or a head collar perhaps that's got stuck in it. You know, all of these issues will lead to a trigeminal nerve issue somewhere in the head of the horse. But you need to think of trigeminal really is anything related to the head. We can be very specific. We know it's a very specific nerve, but it's worsened by things like stress as well. And so stress herbs are really going to help mitigate any of that negative response that's being expressed. We're also going to have a look at the vagus nerve. Now, it's the master nerve. We know it's the master nerve. We want botanicals that are going to help strengthen its function and also repair it a little bit. It's one of the ones that get frayed the most when stress or anxiety or even trauma are involved. We know some animals suffer from myelin sheath dysfunction, so we want to look at herbs that are going to be specific at repairing as well some of the nerves, but in particular the vagus nerve in this one. And then also I'm going to start looking at some of the peripheries, you know, the fingers and the toes, the hooves and the paws. You know, we see a lot of neuropathy when we look at metabolic conditions, when we're looking at diabetic dogs, when we're looking at laminitic horses. We know if we've got an animal that's got any of those conditions, we know that their peripheral nervous system is going to be depleted. It's going to be damaged to some extent. So we want to be able to offer botanicals that are going to help repair specifically the peripheral system. Now the trigeminal, it's the 5th cranial nerve. It is associated with head shakers, sinusitis, or any kind of sinus infection as well. So if you turn up to a horse and it's got a sinus infection, you want to be thinking about some of these herbs as well. Any animal that's had a dental issue or has had an extraction, which is a lot, you know, how many yards do we go to and they're still taking out wolf teeth, or, and you know, I had an animal last week that had cracked its tooth. Any animal that's got an abscess, how many horses do we know that have abscesses come up onto here? Like, just so many of them. And so that's all going to have an effect on the trigeminal nerve, including all the TMJs. You know, how many horses do we go, or dogs we go to, and they're really stifling a yawn, they can't yawn properly. And as I mentioned, excessive stress. Now, trigeminal nerve impingement is actually quite rare. Like, to have a diagnosis from a vet where trigeminal nerve impingement is the only cause is really rare, but all of those other issues do lead to trigeminal nerve activation somewhere along the nerve, so we do need to bear that in mind. So some of the herbs, the one that I looked into briefly, it's not one I use very often, although I should do, and I'm going to start bringing it in more after I had a little bit of a research, is actually capsaicin. So it's from red pepper, it's just red pepper powder. We've all got red pepper powder in our kitchen cupboards. We can make it into a spray, we can put it into water, shake it up, and we can just use that as a spray if it's selected. It reduces the pain signalling pathway and reduces the stimuli associated with pain. So it's a really good one to put on topically. You probably won't ever have an animal ingest it just because of that spicy peppery feeling. But to put on topically, it's going to be really, really helpful for like any TMJ stuff that's going on. One that you can take, or you can offer, and that you can offer both topically and internally, is going to be turmeric. Again, it's another one we've probably all got within our kitchen cupboards. It reduces inflammation, it's an analgesic, and it interrupts the pain signalling pathway. And it is a specific for the trigeminal nerve. It is also a specific for the entire central nervous system because of its ability to reduce inflammation. Like, it's a systemic anti-inflammatory, but it does have some research that indicates that it works especially well on the trigeminal nerve. Now, another one that's not very popular, you're not likely to have it in your kitchen cupboard at all, is Californian poppy. It is a member of the red poppy. It's not a heroin poppy at all. You can grow it wild in the UK as well. It is very indicated, and it has a very specific action on the 5th cranial nerve as well. This is because it has a sedating action to it, and it sedates that nerve specifically. So Californian poppy can be offered dried direct from your hand. You can offer it fresh. You can also make a hydrosol out of it. I do believe there is also an essential oil, but I'll have to double check on that one because it might be one of the ones that's just too expensive to make. It does have like a very low essential oil quality to it, but it's very sedating, and it just takes the inflammation as well out of that 5th nerve, and it does have some action on repairing the myelin sheath as well, I believe, too. So it's definitely one worth considering. Oh, did I miss one? Yep. So other ones that you want to consider. If you've got a paddock or if you've got a pasture, you should indicate to your owners that they should get some eyebright and they should put it in their paddocks. It does grow wild in the UK. I see it more in Scotland, actually, and perhaps in Northern Wales than I do down south, but you'll see it sporadically coming up. Again, it's for head shakers, sinus infection. but it is a specific for anything to do with the sinus. So for sinusitis, for sinus infection, whether your animals have got inflamed eyes from hay fever and that's aggravating the trigeminal nerve as well. So for head shakers, definitely consider eye bright. You can offer it dried, you can offer it fresh as well. So if you've got it fresh growing in your paddocks, then the animals are just going to go over and graze it quite naturally, and that's exactly what we want. Another one that you might like to try is skull cap. It helps to relax overactive nerves. So those that are firing on all cylinders, which happens if you've got a trigeminal nerve problem, you've got head shaking, it's because the receptors are firing too quickly, and something's aggravating it. So skull cap helps to reduce that aggravation, and it reduces like the sharp shooting pains that you associate with trigeminal nerve pain. So it's very, very specific. Again, I would say that these two and Californian poppy are the three best ones for trigeminal nerve problems. That's just my take on it. Another one that you might find beneficial is a chorus calamus. I wouldn't offer this as a dried herb. It tastes vile. It's full, and I mean packed full of volatile oils. You nibble a little bit and boy, it just lifts you completely. However, it does grow in swampy marshland. Now, if you're really lucky enough to have a track system, perhaps you are living somewhere where you get a damp part of your field and it's kind of in water more than it should be, consider planting this one, because it is a reed herb, and horses are researched to select it when it's provided to them in the field. It's actually an anti-inflammatory and an antioxidant, but it's also neuroprotective, and it has some research specifically on the trigeminal fifth nerve. So again, it could be one that you can just plant in the field. You know, I would be tempted even just to have like a big barrel and just plant it in there as just a reed herb that you can walk your horse over to and just let them nibble on it. Again, dogs are going to nibble on this if they have a need to do so. But there is research there specifically for the fifth trigeminal nerve from a chorus calamus, which is amazing, to be honest with you. Now, herbal specificity in the central nervous. I've given you just a little tiny intro into Californian poppy. So this is how we look at herbs. I just want to give you like a brief overall example of how we look at herbs. So what we do is we just look at a general description of it. It's used in traditional herbal medicine. It's an analgesic, so it's got pain-killing properties. It's a sedative, and it has nervine properties as well. So those are the three things we're looking for when we're talking about its uses for trigeminal nerve dysfunctions for one reason or another. So whether that's head shaking or hay fever, or whether they've got sinusitis, it doesn't really matter, because what we're looking to do is to provide herbs that have a, not necessarily an immediate, but have a specific action on that nerve. So it has a calming effect on the entire central nervous system too. It's also a mild sedative, as I mentioned, so it reduces anxiety and restlessness. Now, if you've got an animal that has got a nerve pain in the head, it will have anxiety and it will be restless. We all know what it's like when you've got a headache and you just want to go into your room and shut your eyes and, you know, shut the curtains and things like that. Our animals can't do that. So the only way that they really can express themselves is to either curl up in a corner and go to sleep, which a lot of them do, but you will also find that a lot of them are restless and they start moving around and can't settle. So it helps them to settle down, it helps them to calm down as well, and it also has this antispasmodic action, so it works on the muscles as well. So you're affecting positive change within the nervous system, within that trigeminal nerve, but also the muscles that are surrounding it. So you're really helping that entire system, or that entire area, to relax too. It does contain alkaloids. There are some of the alkaloids here, I'm not going to try and say them, and they interact with the nervous system, so they're the ones we're looking at. And as I mentioned, they are analgesic, they're mild sedatives, and they have pain relieving qualities as well. So take that as you will. I've got another one coming up for you, so just take those monographs and just start reading them, because they are how we detail all the herbs that are available to you, really. Here are some references for you where I got some specific information about that trigeminal nerve herb. So we're going to move on to the vagus nerve. Sorry, I've got cat hair, more than likely. So we're going to be looking at the vagus nerve. So The vagus nerve, as many of you know, is associated with peristalsis and motility and the breath rate, the diaphragm, swallowing. So you're looking at any animal really, particularly dogs, maybe they've got trachea collapse. Any animal that's got an airway obstruction, so animals that have got COPD. It's also related to anything to do with the gut because it activates a lot of gut stuff going on as well. So you want to be looking at it as well for things like hindgut acidosis too. We're talking about the vagus nerve because it is the sympathetic one. It is associated with rest and digest. We want our animals to be relaxing. Because it's such a big nerve and it's associated with so many different things like tendrils going off everywhere, I look at this nerve as being, what's the best way to describe it? I want to use herbs and botanicals that are not so specific for the vagus nerve. I want to use systemic central nervous system herbs. But there are some specifics that you can use as well. So if you know that your animal has got a problem with peristalsis, or it's constipated, or the diaphragm is not breathing properly again, then some of these herbs are going to be really, really beneficial for you. My number one herb for the central nervous system, across the board, this is my own personal preference, don't have to have it as well, is Avena sativa. Now, it's just the milky tops of oats. You know, farmers pull this stuff up and throw it away. Don't let them throw it away. You can plant this in the paddock. Your horses can just go and munch on it. Your dogs can easily just go and chew some of the roots and the leaves from this. You can make cups of tea from it. You can put it in cold water buffets. It has a specific action on the central nervous system to repair the nerves. So any nerves that are damaged, perhaps the myelin sheath is starting to degrade, perhaps it's just become overexcited and it can't turn itself off. Avena sativa works specifically on the function of the central nervous system, of those specific nerves. It's also a nervine for the mind as well, so it helps to calm anxiety, it helps to reduce any stress that's going on too. And as an added bonus, it's also got some estrogenic qualities. So if you've got a mare that is having problems with seasonal cycles and our central nervous system is going haywire, then you can provide Avena sativa just growing around the edge of their field. They will select it and you're restoring their central nervous system too. It's an amazing, amazing herb and so easy and so cheap to get hold of as well. One that's a little bit more expensive is ashwagandha. So ashwagandha is a specific for reducing stress within the central nervous system. It does work on the adrenal glands too, but it also, in a similar vein to oats, which is what Avena sativa is, it's just oats. It has a similar action on the entire central nervous system to gently mitigate its response to stress as well. So it stops that excitability from happening and just really slows down the mental neurotransmission that's going on. When you've got an animal that's cough, 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 and it can't stop coughing, those nerves have become so excited that sometimes they can't stop. Ashwagandha will help to do that. It will help to reduce that nerve pain signalling pathway as well. A really good one for the nervous system, which you can provide as a dried herb, essential oil, or as a hydrosol, is peppermint. It's very specific for anywhere within the central nervous system. But what it does is it increases GABA. So what that does is it reduces muscle spasms and it also supports nerve function too. So we've got if you could provide all three of these after recession, how amazing would that be? If you had an animal that had kind of any of these things going on, one of those herbs is going to be selected, and it's really going to increase or decrease the amount of time that animal is healing, for sure, 100%. But there are others too that work on the vagus nerve too. Passion flower I mentioned earlier. Sorry, I need to change that. I'll change these two. Passion flower has an action on the central nervous system to not only sedate the nervous system, but it helps to reduce anxiety. It's indicated for anything to do with the mind, really. So if you've got an animal that's really, really stressed and it's unable to put itself into rest and digest mode, perhaps it's got lots of thinking, perhaps it's a trauma animal, perhaps it's working at high competition levels, perhaps it's got a lot of expectation on it, then passion flower is really going to help not just the physical body but the mind as well. It also is pretty good for for releasing the gut to allow for motility as well. It's not a gut specific one, but it does help reduce muscles within the gut too. So we have another one that's really good for muscle relaxation and really, really good for reducing any activity within that vagus nerve too. Another one, which I'm not going to go into too much detail, is chamomile. You're beginning to see, I hope, how chamomile is so effective for so many different things. So it's really good for muscles, it's really good for smooth muscles, it's really good for skeletal muscles, it's really good for the central nervous system. Again, it works alongside passion flower to release nervous tension within the vagus nerve, but because it has an action on that parasympathetic nervous system, it really does help to put that animal into rest and digest mode. It's also a specific for relaxing the gut as well. It's one of our best gut herbs, our gut muscle herbs. So if you've got any tension within the gut, so that could be causing a lack of motility in the animal, providing chamomile will release the tension, then that will have a secondary effect on the vagus nerve as well. And another one I've got is holy basil. So holy basil is indicated for reducing anxiety. It's a specific for vagus nerve, and it's also a specific for anything to do with the gut too. So it's an adaptogen, so it also works on the stress receptors too. Again, any three of those that work together will work really, really, really well. So I've given you another little monograph of Avena sativa. I'm not going to read this one. I'll leave you to read this one in your own time. I believe it is such a valuable herb. So I'll read the last paragraph to you. One of the key ways Avena sativa supports nerve health is by aiding in the regeneration of myelin, the protective sheath that covers nerve fibres. The herb supports the natural ability to repair and restore nerve cells, especially following damage from physical or chronic nerve strain. That includes stress and anxiety as well. So an amazing, amazing herb, and it's free in the forage. But have a read of that one. It's a beautiful herb. Now we're going to move on to the peripheries as well. So the peripheral nervous system will cover anything to do with so many dysfunctions, particularly coming out of winter and moving into spring, because animals are starting to warm up, blood's starting to flow a little bit better. So anything with metabolic condition, anything with laminitis, anything with navicular, any dog that has diabetes. It's also going to be helpful for Sweeney shoulder. So I mentioned earlier, right at the beginning, Nellie. So Nellie always used to come up with a sweat patch right over her scapula. And I had a kind of like, I think she possibly has got Sweeney shoulder. She might have fallen over racing at some point and had a nerve impingement there. She was never reactive to it though, which was always it was like contradictory to what was going on. But after she'd had sessions, that disappeared completely. So I'm sure it's because of all the nervous system stuff we used to give her too. She used to select. So it's also going to be, these peripheral ones are going to be really helpful for anything that has got neuropathy somewhere within the peripheral nervous system. That could be a trauma, it could be Lyme's disease, it could be tetanus. You know, there's any number of canine disorders and diseases that they can pick up from ticks and fleas and all kinds of stuff. And loads of like protein weird myopathies that are going to have an effect on the peripheral nervous system of both horses and dogs. So across the board, these are going to help. Now, they're exactly the same as the ones that you saw for the vagus nerve. They also have an effect on the peripheral nervous system. So how amazing is that? So again, Avena sativa is going to help the peripheral nervous system. Ashwagandha has an action on the peripheral nervous system, and peppermint does as well. So not only are they affecting the vagus nerve in a really positive way, but they also work their magic towards the peripheries as well. So they flow beautifully through the blood to be able to support that in all of our animals as well. Like amazing, amazing herbs. Other ones that you might want to consider. And so, other herbs that you might want to consider for the peripheral nervous system, specifically the peripheral nervous system. One that horses certainly, and I know many dogs will do, is nibble hawthorn direct from the hedge. Hawthorn is a wonderful, delicate herb that restores the circulatory vessels. So it actively repairs the vessels within the body. When this happens, what we do is we increase circulation, and that brings in a lot of new nutrition that actively helps to repair any damage to peripheral nerves. So it is a nervine herb. It is a primary nervine herb, but also through its secondary action of helping to restore and repair vessels, it becomes a functional nervine as well. So it helps to restore the function of the nerves through that secondary action as well. It helps to reduce stress, it helps to bring in new blood to lots of different areas too. So it works as a nervine, it works on the peripheries, and it is indicated for peripheral nervous system function. One that I haven't included here, but I'm going to talk about, is bilberries. Now, bilberries are another UK native. You'll find them all across the hills in Wales, probably in the north of England, certainly a lot in Scotland too. You can grow them in a pot quite easily at your yard. So bilberries, they have a specific action on the peripheries as well. So they bring in nutrition, they do restore the nervous system at the peripheries, and they also help to bring in oxygen. They are one of the biggest antioxidants as a herb that we have access to. And by doing that, they also work in a similar way to hawthorn in restoring nervous dysfunction at the peripheries as well. So one that should be considered as well. One that we've all got growing in our garden. If we haven't got it in the garden, then we've definitely got it in the kitchen cupboard. It is rosemary. Rosemary is anti-stress. It's a nervine. It has an action on the peripheral nervous system. Again, similarly, in a similar way to hawthorn, actually. In fact, all three of these have a similar action. And they do that by stimulating blood flow. And by stimulating blood flow, they're increasing oxygenation, and then that brings in repair for the nervous system as well. Rosemary is also a systemic central nervous system herb as well, so it helps to decrease any excitability, it helps to make sure that nerve impulses are really clear and clarified, like they're doing the job that they're supposed to do as well, and it brings in this wonderful sense of calm too. So rosemary should be one that can be indicated. Animals can eat it direct from the bush, you can make a herbal tea out of it, you can also buy it as an essential oil, but you can also make a hydrosol out of it as well. It works well topically as well to help reduce muscle spasm too, and it helps to reduce muscle spasm in the gut as well. Now the final one we're going to talk about is ginkgo biloba. So this is an ornamental, it's actually a Chinese herb. You'll find it growing plentiful in the UK as well. They tend to drop all their leaves at one time. It's a really beautiful herb. I've never known any other herb to do this, but it will get to a certain point in the year and the next day you'll wake up and all the leaves will be scattered on the floor. It's very beautiful. But ginkgo biloba, you may have heard of it. It's indicated for increasing oxygen, much like rosemary, to the mind. So it's an oxygenator, but it's also a nervine as well, by doing that same thing that rosemary and hawthorn do, and that is to work on it works on the vessels, it increases blood flow, and that increases oxygenation to the nervous system and brings in repair through a secondary action. There are other herbs that work directly on the peripheries as well, like turmeric does it as well, ginger does it, red clover does it. Like, there are so many that I could list that help to push blood to the peripheries of the nervous system that bring in repair for all different reasons, but primarily for the central nervous system too. So yeah, amazing herbs are definitely worth instigating and definitely worth looking into to see if you want to bring in some additional therapeutic awareness into your healing space, if you want to expedite healing for that particular animal. In some cases it's needed. If you want to dig a little deeper into herbs, I've added this in just because I like it, it's quite fun. So for the lymphatic system, we've all come across cases where the lymphatic system has blown. Cellulitis, lymphangitis, you know, they're all in there as well. Mud fever's in there too. These specific herbs are going to be really helpful for reducing those issues. So we've got calendula cleavers, viola and burdock. They're all UK natives. Calendula's not, you do have to buy that in. But you can plant all of these in your paddock. Your dog will easily select all of those as well. Anything for tendon and ligaments. I tend to use anything for tendon and ligaments as an external wash. So I apply it as either a spray or I put it in a bucket and I put it on externally using a cloth or a brush. But Willow, meadowsweet, comfrey and teasel are all indicated for speeding up repair of tendons and ligaments. So we've all come across cases, whether it's canine or equine, where tendon and ligaments have been damaged. It's part of the course in what we do, and these herbs are specific for helping to repair and speed up repair of those tendons and ligaments that might be damaged. Pelvic congestion. The vast majority of our work as equine professionals, I think, is to realign the pelvis. We see it, 8 times out of 10 for most horses that we go to see, or I certainly did. After I've realigned a pelvis, I always offer the following herbs: yarrow and raspberry leaf. They are both indicated for removing congestion out of the pelvic area. So what that basically means is, if you've got a rotated pelvis, if it's tipped forward or it's locked down or one's jammed up high or forward or whatever, the tissues around that pelvis start to adapt and change and lock it into place, and that causes congestion because it presses on various parts of the lymphatic system, or there's tension in the muscle that causes congestion. When it's out of alignment for whatever reason, inflammation is just very gently building, and we're increasing congestion within that pelvis because we're altering the space within it, whether that's through muscle tension or through a structural thing. That's what's happening. So when we realign it, we can reduce some of that congestion because we're delivering all of those products to the waste system. That's what we're supposed to be doing, delivering that to the waste system so it can be eliminated. But sometimes congestion can just linger as well. Sometimes it will pull the pelvic back out of alignment again. When you offer both yarrow and raspberry, it floods in the constituents within that herb are specific for congestion within the pelvis, so they help to wick away that congestion and deliver it for elimination. There are others that you can use too, so Angelica sinensis, ginger is one of them, and red clover. They all push blood to the pelvic areas and help to pull out waste material and congestion that's happening in there too. So really good ones. I always, without fail, always had yarrow and raspberry leaf on me, or certainly a collaboration of some of these, but it was always yarrow was in there. Pain and inflammation, you'll have heard about lots of these probably from social media. So devil's claw is one of the biggest ones. It does have a huge pain-killing analgesic quality to it, but you've also got things like meadowsweet, turmeric and rosemary as well. I'd also like to put devil's claw into the category of a lymphatic as well, because it is a big lymphatic. Most people don't recognise that or don't realise that, but it helps to get lymph moving through the body. So it's a really good detoxicant herb to some extent, and should be in there as well, but it's really indicated for pain and inflammation. That's what most of us use it for or recognise it for. So this is me, I'm Rachael Maxwell. This is what I do. I'm an educator and a trainer in holistic modalities and how we bring seasonality and seasonal botanical healing into our therapeutic spaces. I provide training courses and CPD events. I do most of my work online now. I do come back to the UK 2-3 times a year and undertake a host of in-person workshops and CPD activities. So keep an eye on my website if you would like to be involved in any of those. Please do have a look at my website. We have a membership area there that is specific for botanicals and specific also for owners as well. So I hold practitioner and owner online courses. And also just a big thank you to IAAT. They do some amazing work. I can't advocate them enough. The CPD offerings you get through the IAAT are amazing. So keep tuned to their website and to all of their emails that are coming out, because you'll have some great CPD to come out as well. All right, take care, and I'll speak to you all soon. Bye for now.